Okay, welcome to the Jim H. Hunter Media Center here today. It's indeed a privilege and an honor for me to be up here today. Darlington's throwback platform was instituted to recognize the history of the sport and pay respect to the heroes and personalities that have made NASCAR as popular as it is today. No NASCAR personality has embraced our throwback platform more than Dale Earnhardt Jr. He has supported it from the very beginning, and that support has been felt across the entire industry. The contributions that he has made to our sport are immeasurable, and it goes without saying, Dale, that we're going to miss you on the track next year. We are very excited, though, that you'll be joining the NBC Sports team, and we look forward to seeing you back at the Lady in Black next Labor Day. On behalf of Darlington Raceway, I'd like to present you with this print that features many of the highlights that you have experienced here at Darlington. And we also have something else we'd like to do. Darlington Raceway's legacy and tradition in the sport of NASCAR is well documented and understood across the entire industry. We also understand that it is the racetrack's responsibility to cultivate the growth of the sport. Therefore, Darlington Raceway hereby announces today that it will donate 88 tickets on an annual basis to the Bojangles Southern 500 in the names of Dale and Amy Earnhardt that will be provided to young people in the PD region of South Carolina and help us introduce and grow the sport for the next generation of fans. So congratulations to that, Dale, and can't thank you enough for all you've done for Darlington Raceway. We've got the Earnhardt Towers over now in Turn 3 that will forever be known as the Earnhardt Towers. And personally, I want to thank you for supporting us, supporting me over the years. And I'm really, really glad that, like I said, that you'll be back at the Lady in Black. So again, thank you very much for all you've done for us.
I appreciate that. You've been a great friend of mine. You've been great for this sport as an individual in many, many ways. And I appreciate you as a person. This track's definitely, meant a lot to my family. Dad had a lot of success here. I appreciate you guys showing, honoring him the way that you do. It certainly makes everybody in our family feel good when you guys do that. So I'm speaking on behalf of his brothers and sisters and his mama and his kids that we couldn't thank you enough for everything you do to honor my father. So that means a lot to me. I appreciate you doing what you're doing with the tickets. That's going to be cool to hopefully hook some new fans over the years. I'll certainly look forward to coming back here. And Steve tells me this is one of the funner ones to call. So I know how the racing is here and how difficult it is here, and I can imagine that there's not a dull moment up there in the booth because I know there's not one in a race car. So thanks a lot, and it's been, this track here has earned my respect more than any other for how difficult and challenging it can be, and it's not lost its reputation whatsoever over the years. If anything, it's just continued to grow. So, and with a person like you and your staff here, it's got an amazing future. So, thanks a lot.
Okay, we'll open the floor for questions. If you have a question for Dale, raise your hand. We're going to start here with Pete, then go to Claire, then to Mike.
Pete Iacobelli, Associated Press. Dale, what was it like driving up to the track and then driving around it and seeing the name Earnhardt Towers up there?
I think that Dad would be incredibly proud to have something like that done in his name, and my association with it. It certainly makes me proud as well. And my sister took a lot of pride in it and came up here today to be a part of that. She drove up here this morning to be here for an hour and a half to drive back home to Charlotte. So that tells you what it meant to her. All those kind of things are certainly very new to me. I've never, never been in a situation where anything like that's been done in my name, but I've seen it happen to my father quite a bit over the last decade, and I love that there's things. I love when anything happens that helps people take a moment to remember him, recognize him, honor him. That was one of the first things I thought of when he passed away was, man, I hope that nobody ever forgets who this man was, and that, Darlington and the sport does a really good job of making sure that's never going to happen. So it means a lot to me.
Go to Claire, then to Mike, then to Al, then to Bob.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. We love the stories of you coming to the track when you were a kid. I imagine Darlington being so close. And then kind of your love affair with Darlington. At the beginning, you didn't really feel comfortable racing on this racetrack, right?
Well, it's really, really hard. I remember coming here when the Cup garage is on the other side and hanging around in the bus lot. Where, they had the bus lot. Actually, Daddy's bus was over here in turn 2. And, it was, I didn't realize, how hard this track was. I was here when Lake Speed won and spent, was here when all through the 80s came to all the races. And I didn't realize how hard this track was. They had a lot of nicknames for it, and they would comment and talk about how difficult it was, but you can't understand that until you go around it and try to, go around in competition. And I was telling Greg, just a minute ago, we were standing in the garage watching the last few minutes of practice wind down, and I was watching that big screen, and Keselowski was out there running, and I told Greg, I said, you watch that car go around that track on the big screen, you can't tell, but it's hell in there, and he's got his hands full. And it doesn't visually come across from watching the cars, but this place, there's no harder oval to get around, to set a car up for, and there's not a track that I know of where the car makes such a dramatic change over the particular 10, 15, 20, 30 laps over a tire run. The car just goes bonkers as the tires are starting to get ate up. So you got your work cut out for you, and it's always a little warm here. So it's inside the cockpit's not very comfortable, but I came here and I almost won somehow in the Xfinity car, and I ran second to Dick Trickle. And to be honest with you, I was not thrilled with it that day, but after all this time, it's one of the races that I'm more proud of. Number one, because we had a good day, and it was only my second race here, and number two, I lost to one of the greatest drivers that's ever been behind the wheel of a race car. So I've had some good runs here, and we've actually had a lot of top tens the last several trips. We had a shot at winning a couple years ago. Harvick beat us, but it's really rewarding when you get it right. And if you don't get it right, it's a long weekend. For anybody outside the top three, it's hard. It's hard work. But it's I could go on and on. It's such a tough racetrack. And man, I came here today, and as soon as Xfinity practice started, I couldn't believe how much the track's changed in just such a short period of time. It just seems like just a few years ago, this thing was, it was pitch black and new asphalt, and it's grayed up so much, and it's back to its old self for sure, and harder than ever to get around.
Go next to Mike, then to Al, then to Bob, then to Kenny.
Mike Hembry, USA Today. Dale Kelly talked some this morning about Homestead and the fact that her overriding emotion there is going to be sadness. Have you thought ahead much to that, or are you kind of bracing yourself for all that? And how do you feel your emotions are going to be that week?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a little bit as we get closer, but because this will go by pretty quick. These last few races will go by pretty fast, so it's going to be here before I know it. I haven't really had any emotions yet, and I know I'll be sad as well. I mean, it's hard to put so much into something and then have to, and then have to stop doing it and change directions. It's just no matter why retiring or having to change what you're doing. It's not, when you put so much into it, it's hard to make that change. And I don't really know what I'm going to miss. I think if I knew what I was going to miss, it'd be even more emotional and harder to deal with. But the fact that I'm not quite sure exactly what's going to be the most difficult part about it, it's really not set in yet. So I know it'll be, emotional on Sunday at Homestead, that last race. I'm going to have a lot of friends and family there because of that moment. I don't really have a lot of friends and family that come to the races. My mom doesn't come to many races at all. But to have all of them there, it's going to make it more, important and special for me. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out. But I know that I never really thought about what that would be like until Steve ran his last race with me at Homestead. And he was as cool as a cucumber all weekend, at least in front of everybody, in front of me and the guys in the hauler and everything. And he was great all the way up until every race. He would lean in the car, we'd shake hands. We'd say a few words about, have a good day, I'm here with you, we're going to work together, all those things that you like your crew chief to say. And as soon as he'd come in there and started talking, he just fell out and just started crying, bawling like a baby. And I thought, man, and I started crying too, to be honest with you. It was a difficult moment. But so I imagine that's really going to be part of it for me, and it's going to be hard to not have those emotions at that last race.
Go to Al, Bob, Kenny, then Kelly.
Yeah, Dale, Al Pierce with Auto Week. Sort of off topic. Have you gone to Chase Elliott, or has he come to you asking for advice on how to handle a relatively difficult start to this career? Because you started out as a winner almost immediately. Has he come to you and said, what am I doing wrong? What should I be doing? Or do you figure he'll figure it out himself?
Well, yeah, to be quite honest with you, I hadn't really thought his start was that bad. I thought that he's had some good runs. I mean, I'm kind of living it there with him just like the rest of his teammates, and we're behind closed doors with that whole organization and understand the ebb and flow of the company and what's going on. And I thought that he's done a really good job, and I really haven't looked at his statistics on paper, but from what I've seen and watching him in practice, he's got speed. He's been one of the better cars in the company throughout the whole year. And I know that it's probably nagging at him not to go to victory lane, but it's hard to win. It's hard to win in this sport, and there's been a bit of a turn of the page and a change in the tide to where Chevrolet's playing behind a little bit. Now we expect next year to be completely different with this new car, and I know that Chase and those guys can't wait to get to work on it. I think personally, just looking at the car, that's going to be a big improvement performance-wise for us as a manufacturer. We need that. We're in my opinion, we're struggling as a manufacturer, and I think that it has to be taken into the conversation with how Chase's season has gone. But again, I think he's been one of the better HMS cars on a regular basis. I think that when us or the 48 and the 5 are struggling for speed, he's usually not. He's usually got his car actually up in the top 8 or the top 5. Usually there's 5 Toyotas and then everybody else. But he's been right there behind them, kind of chipping away at it. So, but I know that statistically he's probably definitely not satisfied at all. But he's not come to me. He's pretty much got a great support group with his father and everything. It's going to give him everything he needs when it comes to advice and direction, and so I'm sure he's getting everything he needs from Bill.
Go to Bob, Kenny, then Kelly Crandall.
Bob Hockers, ESPN. You talked a little bit about how the track has changed in just the last few years. I'm curious, how much has the track changed and the racing here changed since you first started racing here?
Not a lot. The line's pretty much still the same. You still fight the same things with the balance of the car and how it drives. You still run, you still fight the same things. So I don't think it's changed much at all. When it got repaved, it was crazy fast for a while. But and it was smooth. But now it's gotten the bumps back, and there's the patches in turn 2 that we all knew so well for so many years when I first started racing here, till they repaved it. So even those imperfections are kind of appreciated at some tracks, rarely. But I think it, you don't. We've all gotten bitter taste in our mouth from repaves. So the last several just not been a lot of fun, and it doesn't improve the racing when they do that. So it's great that this place has aged again, and it aged really quickly. I was surprised at how quickly it aged. Some of the tracks like Charlotte just don't seem to wear out at all, and whatever they did here worked out really well.
Kenny?
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. Way off topic here. What's the deal with the honeybees?
Oh, yeah. So this house we're remodeling for our show, there was a bunch of bees in between the ceiling of the first floor and the second floor. And it's really, the house was built in 1870, so it's really like a 4x4 beam through there, so it's a really tight space. And these bees got into the siding, which has a lot of water damage and holes in it. About every animal that down in Key West has lived in this house in the last 20 years. But, I mean, everything. So the bees were, they've been building in there a long time. There's no one lived in this house for 20 years, and it's been in pretty bad shape for the last 10 years at least. And they built that system in there. And so when they peeled what you saw a picture of was when they peeled the ceiling away from the first floor. We've had the professional come out there because we know there's a specific way they have to be removed safely for their sake. And they said the workers were tasting the honey and all that stuff, so I said it was pretty good, but we didn't keep any of it. But they took the nest out and it's all gone, so it's pretty crazy. We knew there were a lot there, and but we couldn't exterminate them. We have to get somebody to come in there and remove it properly, and so we couldn't do that till we got the ceiling out of it. And luckily, we didn't have anybody get attacked in between when we started and when we can remove them. Yeah.
Kelly Crandall, Racer.com. Dale, you had mentioned the last couple weeks of how much you sweat in the car, and you were going to take a page out of like Jimmy Johnson's book and try the cool suit this weekend. Have you had it already?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Okay. Yeah. Was it Jeff Gluck that sent me? Where's he? Is he here today? Did you send me that article about like the more you work out, the more you sweat or something? Yeah. So I guess, ever since I started biking, it's fired up my system to where I'm just sweating like crazy. But at least in the car anyways, I've been losing a lot of water throughout the races, and I was thinking Jimmy's been telling me for a couple weeks, which he does this to me all the time. He's like, man, you need to try this, you need to do that, you need to go over here and look at this, and he just keeps pushing you until you do it, because he really gets behind and believes in something, and he wants you to get in that world. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna give it a try, and I wanted to try it in practice today. I don't want to go cold turkey into a race with that thing on, because if it quits working, it's gonna ruin you. And so I practiced with it today, and it worked okay. I'm not sure if I'm gonna race it Sunday, but Jimmy loves it. I know a couple other guys that use it, and they love it, and it's really cold. But I'm just so nervous about it not working. And if it doesn't work, I won't be able to finish the race. It'll get too hot. So it's like a big wool thing with a lot of tubes and everything running through it. So if it shut off, there was a couple times in practice when it quit, and it just smokes you out. It's just so hot. So I don't think I want to take any chances. We got a pretty good car, I think. We've been running pretty good in practice, and I want to make sure, I can get to the finish without any problems. But it's definitely very cold. It is when it works. It's very cold. It's like a gel or something that runs through there.
Come up front to Pete.
Pete Yakapelli, AP. Dale, you probably asked this week after week after week, but do you feel like there's a chance for you at Darlington? Do you feel like have you come to grips with the way the season's playing out so far? And
Yep.
Are you overly worried about the playoff?
I'm not overly worried. I mean, it'll either work out for us or it won't. I've been in this situation before, and I've certainly come to terms with how my seasons went. Am I happy about it? No. Am I satisfied? No. Are we? You know what we are as a team trying to steer ourselves in the right direction positively, you know, with a good attitude about it. You know, I've seen this situation in the past and teams, you know, that I've even been in fall apart, and it just goes worse and spirals out of control. So we're like, you know, we're dumping buckets of water out of this ship trying to figure out how to get going and get it right. We had a good day today. We went to the sim yesterday. These are the little positives that you pull out of every day when you're struggling. So we went to the sim, worked our guts out, found some things. We brought them here today. They worked exactly like they did on the sim, which is pretty impressive. We had some decent speed. Are we as fast as some of the other guys? No, but we're right there. Do I think that we have the car to win? We don't. I know that there's maybe only 2 or 3 guys that can say that. But we do have some speed, which has been missing for the past several weeks. And we worked hard to show up here and be competitive. And, yeah, the first half of the year, when we didn't run well, we always had good speed. And we always were running well, and that kept you positive that if we can just complete a race and put one together, it's going to result in a good finish. And then midway through the summer, we lost speed, and we had crappy finishes and no speed. So we're trying to get that speed back because you can't run well without it. And hopefully, you know, if we get – I'm not giving up or anything, but I'm not going to beat myself over the head about what happens the rest of the season. We're just going to work hard. And I don't want my guys to remember this season because we fought and fell apart and got negative and nasty and short with each other. I want those guys to remember it. Even if we don't win or have success, I want them to remember that we worked our guts out and we stayed at it to the very end. You know, we fought hard to the finish. So I had an experience in 2004. Me and Tony Jr. and Tony Sr. won 6 races. And we got, in a matter of 3 or 4 weeks, we had gotten to Homestead and didn't want to work together anymore in a month. We went from running 6 races, happy as we could be, worked together all our lives, and in 1 month couldn't stand to be in the holler together, didn't even want to talk to each other, and we split up, and it was a bad decision. We ended up, me and Tony Jr. got back together, but we'd already done the damage. We were a great unit, and it busted it up. So I know if we can't let that happen no matter how the results are. We've got to, we're all very close, and that's probably most important is that we remain positive and keep working together.
Any additional questions for Dale? We got Pete again.
I'm sorry, Dale. I remember last year at this time you were sitting before us talking about your progress from your injury with so many unknowns. To be here talking to us and getting ready, and clearly back on the track, that must be a source of pride for you that you were able to come back this way this season.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I am very proud of. There was a couple, there were some weeks where I wasn't coming back and knew I wasn't coming back and didn't want to come back and thought my career was over and had had wrapped my brain around that and so I am thrilled that I was able to get back in the car and compete. And I think about that, me and Amy talk about it, or I might talk about it with some of the guys or my family about where I used to be and how much of a struggle it was. And, the results haven't been where we wanted this year, and we haven't ran like we thought we should have. But physically, it's not a miracle, but it's a blessing to be healthy and clear-minded and not in that space I was in. It was awful. Yep.
Go to Jeff and then finish up here with Claire.
What's your sense as to whether the cone rule could actually happen? I know you commented on it on your podcast, but do you think that it's realistic that it could actually be put into place here?
I think you could. I would have to really think about it. I haven't really sat down and said, you know, how would it not? What would be bad about it, or why wouldn't it work, or why couldn't it work? Only thing I see that could get in its way is maybe some procedures and the way we do things with our pace laps and so forth, and we wouldn't want to extend that period of time, you know, to run an extra lap or two to get that sorted out. But and what happens, you know, is the first several lanes are going to get this sorted out perfectly, and then you're going to see a lot of guys doing things, taking advantage of guys and jumping a few rows, and there'll be a lot of bickering and carrying on, I imagine, from about 15th on back. Will NASCAR have to say, whoa, you know, get in line, the guys are going to be riding 3 wide, I'm supposed to be in front of you, no I'm not, I'm supposed to be in front of you, I wanted this lane, you took it before we got to the finish line or the cone, and there's going to be all kinds of, if it doesn't work, it'll be in the driver's hands, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So they'll, you know, NASCAR have to lay it out pretty clearly on how you make this decision as you come up to this cone. But I think it's worth looking into for sure, because the one thing that I think all the drivers would agree on is that a lot of these racetracks are so predictable about what lane is the best lane. And you might have a great car running the top 5 all day long, but get 2 or 3 late restarts, which happens all the time, and be in the wrong lane for every one of those. Like at Michigan, you can go from running 5th all day to finishing 15th in 10 laps because of those restarts and being in the wrong lane or restarting in the wrong lane. You get on the bottom at Michigan on the restarts, you're losing spots unless something miraculous happens, or you just drive it up in the right side of everybody and run them up the track. That's frustrating as a driver, and so I think that's why the cone rule is even talked about today as a possibility. So I'd love to have more discussions about it and see if it's something that could come into the sport. It's just never been done on a bigger track than a half mile, so how would that work and what would that look like, and is it even possible? But I think it's what the drivers are curious about, because being in the wrong line sometimes is 4 or 5 positions on a restart, and there's not much you can do about it. And that shouldn't be that way. I mean, you shouldn't be sitting there running so good and nope, well, I'm going to restart on the inside, caution come out, and now I'm in a bad spot. You know, it's frustrating.
Claire?
Dale, can you tell the story about the Uber rating? How did that come down, and will you share that with us?
I only rode in an Uber maybe a dozen times, and apparently you got to ride in it a certain amount of times before you ever ever let you see your rating. So I'm looking, we're riding in an Uber, and there's about 4 or 5 of us in there, and they're all talking about their rating. And I look at my phone, and my rating doesn't come up. So I don't have my rating in front of me, and they're like, well, why don't you have a rating? I'm like, maybe I haven't rode in enough Ubers to have a rating yet. And the driver goes, I see your rating. It's 4.0. And I was like, all right. You know, I thought 4 out of 5 stars. That's not too bad. So everybody in the car is like, whoa, my God, you know, and that's terrible. And the Uber driver says, yeah, I almost didn't come get y'all because of that 4.0, because they can just turn you down. You know, he said he saw that rating and was like, almost didn't come get you. And I said, I don't know what, I mean, I've been in only maybe 4 Ubers at this point. And so I guess I got in a Uber that had a driver that was not a fan of me. And that's the only way I can explain it, because I've not done anything in an Uber that anybody, you know, I've been pretty reasonable and nice and conversational. And so after that ride, my Uber rating did come up, and it said 4.1. And so we rode in maybe 6 or 7 more Ubers over the next 4 or 5 days. Every time we needed an Uber, it was with Amy and her family. I was the one calling it, because I'm like, I got to get this rating up. So, and everybody on Twitter was like, keep us updated. So I got it to a 4.5 once we left once our vacation was over. But it's a great service. really convenient. And so I got some more work to do. Yeah.
You may have the most popular Uber rating, but for the
It's
end of
not
the
very
year.
popular, apparently. I got to get, I think a 4.8 would be where the anxiety levels will get low and back to normal.
That's good.
But, well, I did, but I believe that I only started using Uber over the last couple of months, and they just started allowing their drivers to accept tips. And I don't know, maybe I didn't tip the first couple of guys because I didn't know you could. And so maybe that's why they gave me. I think that we talked to all the guys that give us rides, and they were like, "Yeah, if you don't tip us, we're going to give you 4 stars." So maybe I got a couple 4 stars out of the gate, and now it's going up. So we had conversation about it with every one of the drivers, and we learned a lot about their profession. It was pretty interesting. Yeah, I thought that was. I thought I was a little bit relieved that they didn't give me too much crap about it. That they had some funny tips. They got a little, had a little humor about it, and so I mean I'm a fan of the service, and their Twitter interaction only made me like that more. So it seemed pretty cool.
Well, Dale, thanks for taking the
you.
time to join us, and
Thanks, guys.
If we can have you stop here at the picture real quick, then we can have our photographers get a shot with you, and Carrie Tharp.